Hey, fellow patriots, I'm Bree.
And I'm Blaze. Some call me Pa. It has been said that we have 4 boxes to keep ourselves free. These are the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammo box.
And we are the 4th box. We are here to arm you with enough information, resources, and skills to take back your freedom, increase your self-sufficiency, and inspire you to join in the fight against tyranny.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Thank you for joining us and for joining in this fight.
Welcome back to the 4th box. Welcome back to the 4th Box podcast, ladies and gentlemen, the first of 2026. Hard to believe that we have made it into 2026. We started this podcast in 2024, so that feels crazy. Pretty much at our 2-year mark now that we're getting into the first of the year. I know that for those of you who were with us last week, we had a little bit of a shorter episode than normal. We're going to try to do that again. Of course, this is falling on another holiday. This episode is being released on New Year's Day. So we'll try to keep it chill. We'll try to keep it short so we can all get off and enjoy the holiday and then kick off the next year, 2026. And hopefully it's less of a doozy than this last one, but we shall see. So we're together on this one. One of only few that we're actually in the same room, recording from the same device, the same microphone. This is kind of a rare occurrence for us, but always good to have some time together. So here we are. Welcome to 2026 and the 4th box.
Yeah, exactly. Greetings, 4th box faithful. We are very happy again to be coming to you from our virtual Buckman Tavern, a place where patriots gather, and we are celebrating the new year. We're going to go into this new year very optimistic that there's going to be some great things happening. And that would lead me into my toast tonight. And I'm toasting one of our, one of our favorite guys over the years, and that's General Mike Flynn, who just the other day issued an open letter to President Trump. As you might recall, he was part of the Trump administration in the first go-around with Trump. But he issued an open letter to Trump on behalf of 79 million Americans, many of whom I think, like ourselves, are unhappy with some of the things that he's doing. And he is calling for a year of accountability. So my toast tonight goes out to General Mike Flynn. I'm having myself a Fezziwig.
Ooh.
If you don't remember who Fezziwig was, he was the employer of Scrooge in the Charles Dickens classic, A Christmas Carol. So I'm having a Fezziwig tonight in honor of the holidays, which we're still celebrating around here. Hopefully you can see the Christmas tree behind us around these parts. We don't take that tree down for another month yet.
At least.
Yeah, we leave it up at least through the 12 days of Christmas, which only begins Christmas Day. The commercialization of Christmas begins, Thanksgiving or sometimes even before, and then when Christmas Day is over, the Valentine stuff come up. But we celebrate Christmas right on through the 12 days of Christmas, and we usually leave our tree up until the balls are starting to fall off with the needles. So,
as our forefathers did, that we learned last week.
That's correct. So we're very happy to be coming to you this New Year's Day. I have a quote today, hopefully ties in with the season. Be at war with your vices, at peace with your neighbors, and let each new year find you a better man. And that comes from Ben Franklin. And we've used quite a few of his over the last 2 years.
He's become a favorite. And I was going to say, I think your Fezziwig is a Sam Adams, correct?
Let me see. I don't know. I just, yes, it is.
Another one of our favorites.
Sam was certainly a favorite as one of the founders and one of our most favored beer makers, I might add.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
double whammy.
It is a double whammy. And we're very, very happy to be together tonight, coming to you, as mentioned. We're going to keep it short. We did have a couple of things I guess we could talk about, but mainly we are hoping that all of our listeners and everybody out there is enjoying a wonderful Christmas and New Year's season. Stay safe out there tonight. If the roads are bad, make sure you have somebody who's not imbibing to drive you around to the various celebrations and get home safe. So you can join us again next week.
Yeah. Here. Another cheers to that and everyone for New Year's.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So I didn't know what all you had, Bree. I was looking up some interesting facts about events that have happened on New Year's Day. If you didn't have anything else.
Well, I've got a couple things, but we can get into it on the back half. So you start us off.
Okay. So New Year's Day was significant in American history for several different items. Not the least of mention was the issuing of the Emancipation Proclamation, 1863. Of course, the Civil War was still going on. This freed by law the slaves in the rebelling states. Of course, the war was going to go on yet, but by law now they had been freed based on the Emancipation Proclamation, which was in 1863.
Interesting.
Yeah. Another significant event happening on New Year's Day was the opening of Ellis Island in 1892, which I think most of our listeners are probably familiar with the fact that that is where all the early immigration, particularly from Europe and those people coming from across the seas, would go through Ellis Island to be assimilated into this country. You know, there's a big debate goes on today as to whether or not we should be doing that. But since all of our forefathers got here under those precepts, I think it's a good practice, and the law does require that you come through a nationalized system. Also, there was a flag, it was called the Grand Union flag, that was significant. It was raised the very first time by George Washington during the heat of the American Revolution, and this was to signify America as an independent nation. And it did have some of the Union Jack, the old British flag, as part of it, but then it had 13 stripes on it, significant of the 13 colonies at that time.
Okay, a lot of stuff has happened so far.
A lot of stuff. Another interesting tidbit I found, the very first Rose Bowl, and I haven't kept up with college football. The Rose Bowl at one time was called the granddaddy of them all. The very first Rose Bowl was played on New Year's Day in 1902. So that goes back quite a ways, and I think they still have it, but now there's some kind of playoff system and other games that kind of passed up the bowl games, which were really the opportunity for, the outgoing senior football players to showcase themselves one more time.
Yeah.
The last interesting tidbit I have related to today, New Year's Day, the very first dropping of the ball on Times Square, which is shown around the world now, and there are other places that do similar events, but the very first time that happened was in 1908. So that's been going on for a long time, too, as we look back at some of the things that were going on New Year's Day in American history.
That's cool. That's interesting. 1908. Okay, so they've been doing that a while, and it's kind of a good segue into the next little bit that I wanted to talk about here, because I kind of wanted to talk about some resolutions that I have and that I think we can all share, that kind of align with our mission for the Fourth Box podcast. And this sort of brought to mind when you talked about the first ball dropping in 1908. When I think about the ball dropping today, and now 2026, 2025, going into 2026, I think, oh man, I would hate to be in Times Square. So much risk of, you name it, all kinds of terrorist attacks, a transgender attack. You name it, it could happen. That's the first thing you think about. And I think part of that is because so much of what we see in the mainstream and any of the propaganda machines, any tool of the propaganda machine, is fear mongering, as we know. But I think about even this year, New Year's Eve, we're seeing a lot of threats. Cities are canceling their New Year's events, this and that. And that's just gotten so much worse over the years. And they do this stuff all the time. I mean, you think about that when you see these headlines and you go, oh yeah, I could really see how that could happen. Chicago canceled their New Year's Eve event because they're afraid of some sort of, I don't know what. Is it a foreign situation? Is it a cultural war in the city? I don't know. They just say anything could happen. We're canceling the events. And I think we see this a lot nowadays, and we've seen it throughout this last year. And they set up the stage for fear and for stay in your houses, just like they did with COVID. But now it's for a different reason. And usually none of this stuff ever happens.
Mm-hmm.
But they scared us into removing ourselves from that community, from that opportunity to be with people around us, to mingle with strangers, to meet and share something with people maybe we don't know, maybe people who do think differently than us. They've scared us out of doing that. And one of the things that I hope that all of us can do this year as we move into 2026 is somehow find a way to manage that fear that manifests within ourselves, that is perpetuated by outside forces that are inclined towards evil. Because we talk about it on the show every single week, that we are on the side of good and that we are on the side of God, and falling for these man-made fears that's what the devil wants, right? And I think that we think about the obvious times that it happens, but it's easy to miss the times that it's happening every single day. Oh, there's going to be a huge snowstorm. It's going to be the biggest we've seen in 100 years. Stay home. They're scaring you. They're putting fear into your hearts. Oh, there's a new neurovirus going around this year. It's going to be the worst we've seen in 100 years. It's fear again. Oh my gosh, the black versus white, the Somalis in Minnesota and this and that. It's fear. It's fear. It's fear. It's fear. It's fear. Why are they always trying to instill this fear in us? Because the more fearful we are, the less powerful we are. The weaker we are, the less we can come after them. The less we can pay attention to the shit that they pulled all of 2025 and every year before. So I hope for 2026, we have the discernment as a group, as a people in this country and around the world to see through it. Sometimes it's hard to do, but that's my one big resolution for all of us, to see through that fear that they're constantly shoving down our throats.
Yeah. So much to talk about there. It's really interesting that Chicago, of all places, is calling off their official city New Year's celebration, which would, really suggest this is a city that averages 30 to 40 shootings a weekend. And now they're saying everybody should stay home. I would think that based on the average number of shootings that go on every week in Chicago, this should be a warning that is every week.
Yeah.
Therefore, when it comes out this week, nobody should be alarmed that anything, more than normal. But, I think there are concerns when you hear these different populations that have moved into different places around the country. Minnesota is under the microscope currently, but there are other places around the country where there have been large congregations of outsiders that have come in and basically had a big influence on local governments, and quite honestly, as they're finding out up in Minnesota, have contribute to a tremendous amount of fraud, which I think when it's all said and done, they're going to find out that there were certain people within the government, state government up there, that were facilitating that. But aside from that, I think there are groups around the country that have certainly made known their intentions to do harm to us one way or the other. So I think we should always be alert to that. But back to your point about, being scared to where we quit doing the things that we normally would do, we have to get beyond that.
Right.
I think most people hopefully have altered their judgment a little bit after you look back now at the COVID thing, and many more people are starting to, accept the idea that we were buffaloed and that the people that they were saying were dying and filling cargo ships with caskets and all this simply was not true. It was more gaslighting and trying to terrify people, as you mentioned, recognizing, of course, that people are much easier to steer when they're afraid and they're looking for somebody to guide them to safety. Unfortunately, the people that were guiding or pretending to guide us to safety were the same ones that were involved with putting more lives in jeopardy and danger with, pushing the things that they did. So, I think it's a great point. As we look forward to the new year, I think we all have to study our surroundings, pay attention. And that's really one of the big things here. I think we've really tried to emphasize at the fourth box is education. We all have to become more educated, which means if you're going to watch some of the traditional legacy news, go and get alternative news out also. Get a wide variety of opinions so that you can recognize there are certainly different ways of looking at the events that are going on around us in the world today. And I think you would have a much more rounded approach to reacting to those things if you went multiple places and sought information. So one other thing I'm going to do for my New Year's resolution as we look forward to the new year and continue to bring you programs from the fourth box is I'm going to try and avoid the word absolutely. It was brought to our attention that absolutely was the most commonly used word in our podcast, both by us and by our guest when it was all accumulated up. And I don't know who has the time to do all that sort of thing, but so I'm going to, by design, I'm going to try and backpedal away from absolutely for.
Okay.
Let's see how I can do with that.
We'll mix some synonyms in this year.
Right. We'll have to study up on it.
I do have a couple more things that I want to, go off as far as resolutions, but I think that's a good one to tie in there because we want to make sure that we absolutely do not keep using that word this year.
Right.
But no, so kind of to go off what you said a little bit there before I jump into some other things is that you bring up such a good point that I'm not saying that the threats do not exist, right? Threats certainly do exist. That I am not discrediting that whatsoever. What I'm saying is that fearfulness is not the correct response. Preparedness is the response. Being educated, like you said, being informed, being alert, being prepared, and that means a number of things. That can be prepared, as far as having extra food in your home to being in good physical shape, right? That can mean a lot of things. How do you respond? You got us that great survival book this year for Christmas. And that was, you said chapter 2, straight to chapter 2, right? That was psychological preparedness. And that's what we're talking about, right? Preparedness can mean a number of things, and that's the biggest. And I think that, to your point, being educated of these threats, being aware of what's going on in the world around us already builds that psychological response. You're kind of immunizing yourself by preparing and thinking and knowing of these things. And there's a reason that we say it every week, being vigilant. It's none of this stuff that we come on here and talk about, as negative as it is, as overwhelming as it can be, as scary as it sounds sometimes, is not meant to make you feel fearful. It's meant to make you want to be vigilant all the time. And so I think that's a huge part of what this is. And I want everyone to aim for that this year. I want everyone to aim to have that mindset. And along with that, you actually mentioned another thing that is a little less for maybe you and I sitting here, but definitely something that takes all of us together, all of the people in the country to start working on. General Mike Flynn, the toast to him, demanding accountability. We cannot keep doing nothing. We have to hold people accountable at a certain point. This whole Epstein thing is a great example of this. They're putting out redacted files when they weren't supposed to do that. Now they're unredacting files, but then some of the unredacted files that have been released, they're trying to pull back and redact again. Like this is not part of the deal. And this is one thing. This is one instance, and it doesn't even scratch the surface of what these people are actually doing. The people that take our money are actually doing to stay in power, the disgusting things that go on at this level, the psychopathic tendencies of these people. We all know what is happening. We know the truth. We only wanted these things to come out so that people could be held accountable. Okay, well, they're coming out. And what do we think is going to happen? We wanted them to come out so that somebody else could hold these people accountable. But at what point do we realize it's us?
Mm-hmm.
That's our job. Not just in 2026 all the time, but we haven't been able to do it. I hope that somehow, some way, we are able to organize ourselves enough and put these fears that are manipulated inside of us by outside forces aside so that we can actually focus on holding the people that are really evil accountable this year. Whatever that takes, whatever that means.
Yep. That should be the goal for all of us. I want to just highlight a couple of the remarks you made early on that segment. Preparation equals education. Education equals preparation. We have to become educated in the world around us, recognizing not just what one particular source is telling you, but recognizing what's going on around it in the world and educating yourself. That is a step in preparation. That is a step to be prepared to deal with the world as it's changing around us. And that could be domestic terror attacks inside this country. It could be power grid problems and that sort of thing. So you have to be educated. We cannot be pacified with the bread and circuses that are provided by all kind of sources to keep us video games, football games, TV programs, what the Hollywood weirdos are doing and all this. We have to understand that taking care of ourselves and our loved ones is up to us, not anybody else. And the second part, going back to Mike Flynn, I think really here's what has to happen. There is such a large contingent of the MAGA movement that is completely committed to Trump. And I would say Trump has done some good things. But I would also say that he has failed miserably in other areas. And as we've mentioned so many times over the last 2 years in this podcast, if everybody uses the Constitution as the bedrock for your decisions, Republican, Democrat stuff goes away. It has no bearing. Is it a constitutionally acceptable action by the president, by the Congress, by the courts? If it is not, we need to hold somebody accountable. We need to do something about it. So just a couple of points, like you mentioned, the Epstein thing. This is one big muddled mess. They've walked it up to the forefront. They backed away. They've done all this shenanigans to keep us distracted, keep us away. We demanded answers. Whatever happened to the Fort Knox audit? Nothing. Nothing ever happened. Whatever happened to pulling out of Ukraine and stop sending billions and billions of dollars over there? We just approved weeks ago a $900 billion NDAA, National Defense Appropriations Act, $900 billion. We have people living on the streets. We have veterans living on the streets. We have a huge drug-addicted population that's just making pig pens out of our city, and we are sending money all over the world. We need to wake up and recognize that the people that are in power are taking care of themselves. That's Republicans taking care of Democrats, Democrats taking care of Republicans. It's one uniparty down there. And Trump's got to step outside of that and take action against the places where he's fallen down, or he is just like the rest of them. And we, all of us, have to recognize that the movement is not a person, as we've mentioned over the last couple of weeks. The movement is us. And if we use that Constitution, it never changes. It's like the spiritual book. The Bible doesn't change. It'll be the same 100 years from now as 100 years before. The Constitution, until it is changed by the methods prescribed therein, has to be carried out by that verbiage. And we have to hold all of the people that are elected to office, that's from your dog catcher at your local county level, all the way down to the skunks in D.C. that have been stealing from us and our children for over 150 years. It is up to us.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that I wanted to say here, I'll call this one a personal resolution. In fact, actually, ties directly into this one. I want to not fall for another person that I think is outside of the bullshit. Because I did. I'll admit that. I'm not afraid to say it. I will gladly tell you that I sat on this podcast and said we need to get Trump in there to change these things. And we need to get this cabinet in there to change these things. And to root out the evil and to root out the deep state and uncover some of these secrets that are hundreds of years old. I really did think that. Straight up, I'm not going to say, I didn't think that. I had a perfect idea this whole time. I knew it was all good. No, I fell for it. I want to make sure I don't do that again, and I'm sorry for anyone that, if I misled anyone, but I think that most of us were on the side of Trump for the reason that you just mentioned, which was to actually make America great again and to have a true outsider on the inside. And what we've seen is everyone who is in there, people that I thought could never be corrupted. And I don't mean Trump. I mean Kash Patel. I mean Pete Hegseth. A lot of people went in there that I thought this is going to make a difference. And I was wrong. And I want to have a clearer head next time around, because what I've always said up before that is that I don't trust any of these people. So next time I'm going to remember that that is my belief, that I don't care who you are. If you're running for government, either you have shady intent, even if it doesn't look like it, or even if your intent is absolutely the purest of heart. As soon as you get in there, you will become corrupted. And I do not know what happens there. It could be some black magic voodoo shit going on. I don't know, but I do know that nobody who gets into office can be trusted again after that point.
Yeah, that's kind of a double-edged sword. I think a lot of us really believe the same thing. I still want to believe that he went in there with the best of intentions. It just so happens, as you mentioned, it seems across the board, once these folks get in there, especially if they're in there for a term or two, our ability to have an impact on their decision-making has gone away. Somebody else, some other group, some other entity is who is influencing their decisions. So the good news is, and this is where we got to become educated, Congress, particularly the House of Representatives, we have an opportunity every 2 years to clean the place out. If we did that, most of what we're talking about would go away. Yeah. So what we have to do is never put the same people back in office. And I know everybody's going to want to say that their congressman is one of the good ones. No, they're not. Congress overall has an approval rating below 20%. That means that all of them have been involved with underhanded behavior. You just cannot look at yours, because if we all sit back and say, well, mine's a good one, guess what? We get what we always got, and that's putting the same people back in. That means nothing changes. If we change the House of Representatives and they go in there uninfluenced, use the power of the Constitution that is granted to them, that is the power of the purse. Every single bill by constitutional diktat that requires spending must originate in the House. The House is the people's house. We have an opportunity to change the complete makeup of that structure every 2 years. And if somebody is in there appropriating funds for something that we don't agree with, or something much worse that is not constitutionally approved, throw the thumbs out instead of putting the same people back in, wishing that something different would happen. That is the definition of insanity. We have to become educated enough to recognize the power is in our hands and stand up and use it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I got a little negative there. My apologies. But you are right. That is the difference, is that we're not taking advantage of that, which is why I really believe nobody can be trusted, because we never switch them out. So of course they're all horrible people now and completely corrupted by whatever is happening down there. And we all have our theories. And I think it's probably a combination of some of the things that we talk about all the time. And that, frankly, that part doesn't matter. I'll go back to the first point that I made, which is having that discernment, being vigilant, being aware. That means being aware about what's going on there too and what's going on with these people. And maybe it means becoming educated enough that you run for office. If more of us ran for office, we'd have more options. That would be a great start. So maybe there's something to that. Maybe it means educating yourself enough and saying, I think I could step away from what I'm doing for 2 years. Just 2 years. I'm only going to commit myself to 2 years and then I'm walking away. Because I think there are enough people who want term limits bad enough that they really would walk away after 2 years. And if enough people were committed to, no matter what happens, I'm walking away after 2 years going in there, maybe that's the solution. We haven't been able to trust the populace to vote new people in. Maybe the idea is to find people who don't want to be in there longer than 2 years. Maybe that should be a little fourth box initiative this year.
Yeah. Well, if there wasn't so many side perks to being there,
yeah,
not the $173,000 salary, whatever they're up to now, that there are opportunities out in the civilian workplace to get to those levels, although it's pretty thin air. But that's not the big number. Those people all go down there like regular folks and come out multimillionaires. There's something else happening. And that's what the influence is. But just to go back to the technical piece of that a little bit, if you take over the House and you rotate new people in there and you exercise the powers that are granted to the House of Representatives, you can take care of the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court goes out of bounds, which they have in many occasions, all the way back, including the Obamacare bill. This is completely including the income tax, go back in 1913. These things were unconstitutional acts that were legislated from the bench. And the House of Representatives has the opportunity to impeach anybody down there. Get them out. If they are not living up to their oath, living up to the document that should be the bedrock for all of our decision making, that's Republicans, Independents, Democrats, Green Party, Constitution. Use the Constitution. That's why it's there. Use that as the bedrock for your decision making. Put new people in there. Throw all the bums out that aren't living up to it. And perhaps then we can get the ship turned around going the other way. Otherwise, there's going to be a whole lot of ass-ache, as we've talked about many times, coming up. The oppression becomes greater. The need for more taxes gets greater and greater. They have to keep feeding this monstrosity that's been created. They keep funneling money all over the world to places that we, the people paying it, don't really care for. It is up to us. And I stand wholeheartedly with Michael Flynn. I continue to stand with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She stood up against it and called out things that she believed to be wrong, and that is exactly what those people should be doing down there. All of them should be doing it. Instead of kowtowing to the powers that be down there, they should be calling out the wrongs that are going on. So I know she got off in the bushes there, starting to sling some mud and playing them silly games, but on principle, I agree with her. And it is an outrage that the Republican Party at large has the long knives out for her. If there were more Michael Flynn's, if there were more Marjorie Taylor Greenes, this thing can be corrected without that ass-ache that we've been talking about.
Oh, yeah, sure. And even Thomas Massey. He's another one I always come back to after I get off this. I hate every politician ever ran. I then go, but I do like Thomas Massey still. Yes, sure. He's put his name on some things that I don't love. However, it doesn't matter how much shit they throw at him. It doesn't matter that they're 100% primarying this guy. We're primarying this guy. We're getting him out as soon as we can. He does not care about that. He cares about bringing as much truth as he can to the people, even if it's in small doses. He never let up on the Epstein thing, even after they released those files. As soon as they dropped, and they were redacted to the point that there was hardly anything there in half of the pages. He said, no, that's not what we asked for. That's not what the bill says. And now we're going to come after Pam Bondi for it. So I will give him some props there. Going a little bit on a sidetrack with that. Another thing that I really want to say that's important for this year before we wrap it up is this is an old one. This is from 2019, 2020. Do not comply. I fully expect they're going to throw some sort of digital ID attempt, some high-level surveillance attempt at us. They're already doing it. They're working on the tools. behind the scenes. They're going to roll something out. I don't know how that looks. I don't know what form it's going to come in. Do not fall for it. That means all of us. It might be sneaky. It might be trying to pay for something on your phone. I do not know what it looks like, how they're going to slowly creep all these things in. I know that it's coming. We cannot let this slip by while we're being so distracted by all of these other things, while we're spending hours trying to unredact documents that are not going to amount to anything anyway, that are never going to get anyone imprisoned or anything. Before we get too far off in the weeds with that, let's remember that there are still things that they are going to try to pull this year. 100%. It's inevitable. And we have to be on the lookout for that. Another thing we have to be aware of, educated on, be vigilant about. And when we see it coming, we have to stand up against it the same way many of our listeners did during COVID. We have to stand so strong in that and simply, whatever it comes and however it comes, do not comply.
That's great. And for all of our New Year's resolution, I think we all need to become more educated, stay alert both within your personal circle and to national global events. There's a lot of rumblings about, is this the year that there's a war breaks out with Iran, Russia, China, the whole thing, global conflict. We, the people, should have an influence on how this country is being steered. And we have to take that back. So we have to become educated. We have to be prepared. And the only thing I could say is I wish everybody a very happy New Year. If you have sick loved ones, we wish them the very best. We're asking the Lord's healing hands to be placed upon them. As we look forward to the new year ahead, let's go into it with eyes wide open, and let's stay active, stay involved, and get educated.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. I'm all in for it. We will be back every week this year reminding you of that regardless, and we will try our best to stay in the know as best as we can, like we have the last 2 years, so that hopefully you can stay focused on the things that actually bring us joy in life. Because at the end of the day, if we do fall for all of these things and we're not experiencing joy, then the devil's already won anyway. So
that's correct. All right.
Let's wrap her up.
We wanted to keep it short. Again, Happy New Year, everybody. Going to close with our Bible verse. Stay safe out there. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. That's 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17. Happy New Year.
Right on. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you next week at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant.
Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate the support and truly love getting to share this message with anyone who wants or needs it. The best way for you to support the show is to subscribe, add a rating, and share with everyone you know. You can find us on Instagram, X, and at thefourthbox.com. We'll see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant.